Hey everyone, so today I'm going to show you how to make Funfetti slice and bake cookies. So for these cookies, you are going to need 3/4 of a cup of butter. The recipe calls for unsalted butter, but I'm going to use salted butter because I don't have any unsalted butter. And that's going to be 1 stick and 1/2 of a stick. You need 2/3 of a cup of packed light brown sugar, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. 1 large egg at room temperature. 1 1/2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. I'm using Walmart. You need 1/2 a teaspoon of almond extract. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then you need 2/3 of a cup of sprinkles plus a few more for garnish. And then some optional ingredients that you might use at the end, and I'll show you how, is some white chocolate pieces and then just a few more sprinkles. Okay, so as you can see, I'm using my phone to read the recipe, and I'll include all the ingredients and the directions in the bottom of the video. So you can use a hand mixer or you can use a stand mixer for this recipe, and I'm going to use my stand mixer, as you can see. And first thing that we're going to do is put our softened butter into the bowl, and we're going to beat it on high for about a minute. Okay, so softened butter essentially has a texture like this. So I'm just gently pushing into it. It's leaving a little bit of an impression. That's softened butter. If your butter is like this, it's too soft, okay? So do use butter that you've had in the refrigerator and just soften it ever so slightly. You want to have it slightly firm. You don't want it overly soft. Okay, so we're going to put the butter in the mixing bowl. Fitted with the paddle attachment, and if you're using a hand mixer, you can use whatever beaters you have available to you. Probably not the whisking attachments, but whatever you have available will be fine. Okay, make sure everything is in place. Make sure to lock the head of the stand mixer in if that is what you're using. We don't want that flying around everywhere. Okay, so we're locked. Turn this on. So we want the butter to be really creamy and fluffy. It might take a minute, it might take a little bit longer than that, but when you finish beating the butter, should look something like that. And then you're going to want to use a rubber spatula to scrape down the sides. And then you're going to measure and add in your brown sugar. Okay. Just gonna scrape all this off here. Oh well. It's okay. All right, so to measure our brown sugar, if you remember, we need 2/3 of a cup. So I have my 1/3 cup measure here. If you have odd size measuring cups, you might have a 2/3 cup measure already, which is really fantastic. So there's a couple ways you can pack the brown sugar into the cup. One is you can just use a spoon to do that and just kind of gently pack it in there. Another way is you could use a rubber spatula like this and just gently pack it in there. I like to just use the side of the bag to pack it in there. It makes it a little less messy. And then leveling with my knife. As always, we want exact measurements. So you're gonna add that into the bowl, and then we're going to put our 2nd, 3rd cup in as well. super important to pack the brown sugar in, because if you don't pack it in, it can leave air pockets, and then you're not getting the exact measurement that you think you're getting. So just a different method for measuring the brown sugar. Okay. Right. So once we've added in the brown sugar, we're going to put the beater back into the bowl, lock the head again, and beat again. We're going to beat until it's fluffy and creamy. Okay, that looks really good. All right. Okay. Once we have beaten this until it was fluffy and creamy, we're going to scrape down those sides again. Make sure we're getting everything on the edges and the bottom. Okay, looks really, really good right now. Okay, and then we're going to add in our egg. This can be room temperature. The recipe calls for room temperature egg. You can use a cold egg. It's really not a super fussy recipe. So don't be upset if you pull your egg out of the fridge and it's cold, because you can just use it like that. It's not a problem. Okay, so we added our egg, and then we're going to add our vanilla extract, and we're going to add our almond extract. So I like a lot of vanilla, so I don't really mind if a little bit extra gets plopped in here. So I'm just measuring right over the bowl. But normally you would measure over a separate bowl, not over the batter bowl. But because, again, as I said, it's vanilla and I don't mind having a little bit more than that, I'm just going to measure over the bowl. It's a little messy. Okay, and then we need 1/2 teaspoon of almond extract. That might be all I have. Go. And the almond mixed with the vanilla is what is going to give the cookies kind of that funfetti birthday cake flavor. So you really do want almond extract. If you don't have it, yes, you can make the cookies with just vanilla, but it won't taste quite the same. Okay, so we are going to put the head back down into the bowl, lock it again, being careful, making sure that's fully locked, turning it on again. Make sure the bowl is also locked in place. Scrape this down a little bit more. We're doing that because the butter and the sugar mixture like to stick to the sides and the bottom of the bowl. And if you don't scrape down the sides, all of the ingredients won't be combined well together. Okay. So once we have this part done, it looks pretty decent. Okay, we're going to measure our flour and salt. And I'm going to measure the flour and salt into this separate bowl here. I believe I need 2 cups. Yes, I need 2 cups of flour. So I'm going to scoop down and just scrape that in there. There's 1. So we're not packing the flour, we're just scooping, making sure we're filling that up, leveling off. That's going right in there. Okay. And for salt, we need about 1/4 teaspoon. Garbage disposal ate this. Ooh, that's sharp. Okay, little guy goes right in there. All right. I'm going to use a whisk, but if you don't have a whisk at home, you can easily use a mixing spoon. once we have that all mixed together, we're going to add it in. Down the head one more time. Mix together. Okay, it's looking really good. So once you get to this point and your cookie dough has really shaped up nicely, we can add in our sprinkles. So again, we're scraping all this down. It's looking really good. Ooh, this keeps on sticking. Okay, so you could use 2/3 of a cup of sprinkles, or you can use 3/4 of a cup. It kind of depends on how many sprinkles you like. I like these Funfetti birthday cake sprinkles, so that's what I'm going to be using. You can use whatever you have. The sugar sprinkles, if you use the crystallized sugar ones, are going to melt a little bit more than these ones, but they still will work just fine. You can use whatever you have on hand. So, sprinkles. Ah, looks delicious. And they're so glossy and okay, right. Okay, so as I said, it's a lot of stopping and starting with this recipe, but it's worth it. Okay, when your dough is ready, it will look like this. Okay, at this point, you're going to turn the dough out onto a lightly floured surface. You're going to shape it into two about 8-inch logs or cylinders, wrap in saran wrap, and put in the fridge for up to 2 days, but at least for 3 hours. Okay, after that point, you'll take them out of the refrigerator, you'll slice them, place them on cookie sheets, and bake. Okay, so I'm gonna get these ready and put them in the fridge. I'm gonna show you what that looks like. Going to be fairly sticky, but nothing that you won't be able to manage. And I know these are Funfetti cookies, but even if you didn't have any sprinkles on hand at all, you could still make this dough and it would turn out just fine. The sprinkles are, I mean, you could argue they're essential for Funfetti cookies, but they're not essential for the cookies just as they are. So if you have this stuff at home, or some of it. So I'm not going to make 2 logs. I'm just going to make 1 log because I'm a rebel. But the recipe does say to make 2 logs, and it really kind of depends on how many cookies you plan on making. I'm just going to make 1 log, roll it, wrap it, and put it in my fridge. Okay, one thing I will say, you don't want to use too much flour, because if you use too much flour, your cookies are going to be dry. You need just enough flour that they will not stick to your countertop, okay, or your log won't stick. So we're gonna roll, roll, roll. Notice how I'm not like smashing my cookie dough down. I'm just gently rolling. It's not a perfect cylinder, but it's good enough. It looks pretty good right now. I'm pretty happy with this. Okay, so I'm just going to pick it up, move it aside, get some saran wrap. Wax paper will also work, as will parchment paper. So we're just gonna gently pick this up, put it on here, and roll it up. Okay, and then it's gonna go into the fridge for a few hours. Okay, that's all for now. Okay, so my cookie dough has been resting in the refrigerator overnight, and I'm ready to take it out and slice the cookies and bake them. So I have my baking sheet lined with parchment paper here. If you don't have parchment paper, you could just put the cookies on the bare baking sheet. They might stick a little bit, but overall you shouldn't have too many problems because there's a lot of butter in this dough. I also have a cooling rack here. Always have a cooling rack ready for hot pans when they come out of the oven. And then as always, you're going to want to have hot pads or pot holders ready so you're not panicking when that timer goes off. Okay, I have a cutting board on my work surface here and a sharp knife. And then of course my cookie dough log that I'm going to unwrap and slice. The oven has been preheated to 350 degrees. And the cookies will bake for about 12 to 14 minutes. And the time is going to depend on a couple things. How thick I slice the cookies and how many pans of cookies I'm putting in the oven at one time. If you have thick cookies and multiple pans going into the oven, it's going to take longer. I'm just going to use one pan, and my cookies are going to be about 1/4 of an inch, maybe slightly thicker, because I like a softer cookie. Look at that. Okay. So they're slicing really nicely. It works best if you have a sharp knife. The cookies aren't going to spread too much, so you can set them aside about an inch between each other on the pan. Okay, so into the oven they go. Look at these. They look perfect. Here, why don't we take them to the light so you can see them better. These are perfectly done. One of the best ways that you can tell if your cookies are done is if you see little cracks in the centers. If they're looking really wet in the center, then they're definitely not done. They need a couple more minutes. So our cookies are done. We're gonna let them sit on the pan for about 5 minutes before we take them off and put them on their own cooling rack. All right, so the final stage of making these Funfetti slice and bake cookies, if you would like, is to either drizzle or dip them in white chocolate or any other chocolate that you have on hand. I have the Ghirardelli chocolate chips. If you haven't got any chocolate, you don't have to use it. Okay, I have a little white chocolate that I've melted in the microwave, and if you're melting chocolate in the microwave, you have to put it in for a little bit at a time, about 20 seconds, and take it out and give a little stir, and 20 seconds more and put it back in until it's ready. If it's quite thick and it's not at a good drizzling or dipping consistency, you can add a little bit of shortening. Ideally, you would use the unflavored shortening, but all I have is butter flavored. Add it into there. Never add water to chocolate or melting pieces, because if you do, it will cause the chocolate to seize. And that means that it will immediately harden and you won't be able to use it. Okay, so I'm just giving a nice drizzle to these cookies. And if you wanted to, if you had extra sprinkles, you could sprinkle on top as a little garnish. So I have more sprinkles. Never have too many sprinkles. You can just take a few here and kind of throw them on top to make them extra pretty, extra tasty. These are great make-ahead cookies because you can freeze the dough.